Hello and welcome to our tech demo today with Peter Ward from WeTrack, where he's going to be talking us through planning, sustainability and operations software. There is an opportunity to ask questions through Pigeonhole if you use the QR code here, or ask questions to us, and also I'll probably ask a couple of questions at the end myself as well, Peter, so over to you.
Thank you, and thank you for all three of you for turning up. I appreciate that. So I'm not going to do much of a presentation. I'm actually going to show you the system. So we do a variety of things, as you saw in the last one. WeTrack got acquired by Momentus in April, so we are part of a much larger organisation which does venue booking software for many of the world's venues. What we have is planning systems, that's project management and risk management, sustainability tracking, which is what I'm going to show you now. Then we have some other modules, readiness and operations. But the point of this is that it all ties together. So sustainability on its own is one thing, but actually part of your generalist operations and your planning and everything else is what makes this really powerful. Just some of the clients we work with. So there's a mix there. You can see there's a lot in sport, but also a lot of normal venues. I say normal venues. Permanent venues, arenas, stadiums, and the like. Now, please, because there's only 4 of us, do ask questions all the way through if you need to. So I'm going to show you a little bit of the system. So this is turned purple yesterday, this morning. So this is brand new navigation for us as part of our Momentus acquisition. So we have the different modules on the left here. So we have the planning, risk, control, readiness, sustainability. Now I'm going to focus on the sustainability. So the idea of the platform is that you as an organisation, and most of the customers that we have are permanent venues, but it can work for others. You decide what's important for you as an organisation to track. Now those could be environmental, they could be social, they could be governance. So you build out the indicators that are important to you. So we can provide a list, but you get to have ultimate control over what indicators you're tracking. And those are going to be different from some organizations compared to others. So you build out your list of targets, your indicators that you want to track. You can assign those to departments, to people, to groups, to different venues if you have a multi-venue setup. And then you start tracking them. So if we look at something here, so reduction of food waste, for example. So that's an indicator we have. So what you see here is we have the values going in. So these can be fed in automatically through an API, or they can be manually entered. Now, for a lot of the DEI and social things, those are going to most likely to be manually entered. For things that are environmental and data-led, particularly utilities, it's much more likely to have API feeds coming through. So we have a baseline value in here of what we did, and obviously baseline values is the important first step for anyone. You need to know where you're starting in order to know where you want to get to. So we have our baseline values in here, and then you can see this blue line. What we're doing as an organisation is saying, fine, this is where we are now, but by whatever the date is, targets, by the 1st of the 12th, 2022, so this is slightly old data, we want to have achieved this amount. And then our silver target is this amount, and our gold is down here. So that automatically calculates this blue line. So this blue line is saying, okay, to achieve that target on the date that you've set, you should be roughly aiming for this to improve your operations. And I think that's really important because tracking things is fine, but tracking things with targets improves behavior, and it actually gives people something to get around and really aim for. So the values come in, and it's doing automatic calculations based on what the previous result was, what the unit is. It can do automatic conversions in here. You can build on checklists and have attachments and lots of other things to support the information. And it gives you this analysis. So this is saying, okay, at this point it was getting worse, then it was getting better, it's getting worse again, and that all gets translated into a traffic light system. So the whole concept of the system is that you can have all your different types of indicators across the widest possible sense of the word sustainability and roll that up into a dashboard that's really easy to see. So you can see here in this case we've actually hit our bronze and silver targets, and those have turned into, or we have, achievements. My internet's been very dodgy today, so hopefully this will pull through. Yeah, I don't have only. Yeah, I was really struggling with the Wi-Fi earlier. Okay. Good. It's going well. Luckily, there's only 5 of us. So what I'll do is just show you briefly on here. So if we look at so you have to take my word for it, and I'll see if it reconnects in a bit. So the indicators get updated, those turn into, so the targets when you hit them turn into achievements, and this is really building in a bit of gamification into the system, so that when you hit those targets you have something to celebrate, and you can share those with your team or with suppliers or with sponsors, whoever that is. So you can see here the targets that we achieved on the right. On the left is our indicators on track. So again, it's a very top-level view, particularly for C-suite, to go, right, across our entire program, how well are we doing without having to just look at tables and tables and tables of data. We can link everything to UN SDGs, so you can do breakdown of how we're faring against SDGs, or by other categories which are set by the users. You can see what targets are upcoming, what we've achieved, leaderboards, how many updates there have been. So there's a lot of information contained within here. And then what's interesting for a lot of organisations is that sustainability in its own right, tracking is one part of it, but it doesn't just happen without any planning. So what we can do, hopefully you can see here, especially on the right, the Gantt chart, is link all the programs of work that need to happen. So say, for example, you're trying to reduce single-use plastic at your venue. That doesn't just happen without a project plan. So there are tasks that need to happen, there are things that need to be done. So you can link all these things together and go, okay, this project is linked to these 3 indicators, there are risks associated with these 2, and then see all of that in one place, rather than having them all over in separate areas. Let's see if this is reconnected. Better. Okay. So the other part that I just wanted to show is if you have, and this is for working for a single venue, so that's fine. If you have the luxury of working with multiple venues, no, it's still a bit dodgy, then what you can do is create league tables. So you go, great, I've got 4 events or 4 venues or 4 whatever it is in my portfolio. For this one, we know the baseline is X, this one's Y, and this one's Z. You can set different targets for each of those, and each of those individual venues or subset child accounts can track their own, and then it aggregates up into the parent account. So this is something that we're doing for ASM Global, for example, but with like 130 venues rolling up into one area, but it could apply equally to a campus with 3 buildings. It doesn't need to be in different locations around the world. So it's got quite a lot of flexibility in that sense. The last thing I would say is the next part of what we're working on is to automatically calculate carbon footprints coming out of a lot of this work, whether that's scope 1, scope 2, and then later on scope 3. And at the moment this is very much venue as a whole based. What we will be building, especially with our integrations with Momentus Technologies and the information they're already capturing, is an event-by-event footprint calculation tool. So we say, okay, I've got 200 people coming for a conference, it's a 3-day conference in the middle of winter, there's vegan food, etc., and it will create a footprint of what is your expected carbon and other footprint of this event. we see that having a great benefit in venues being able to attract customers, clients who are often demanding this information, and venues don't know where to get it from a lot of the time, and then to be able to do post-event reporting based on the same information. So that is the event-by-event calculation tool, which will sit within this as part of the wider venue-based sustainability tracking system. Now, apologies for the internet cock-ups there, but I hope that made sense in 10 minutes. I'm happy to go through more of it. Some of these are empty because they don't have any data in here, and I need to update those. Right, I'll just show you one last bit. Okay, right, so these are the achievements that I mentioned. So, say food composting, we can build out badges, you can share them with people, send them to clients, just get people enthused about this work. And then if you have frameworks, so for example here we've got 3 main pillars of what we're trying to do: energy, strengthen our community, and protect the environment. We can then build out this deeper, richer layer of multi-venue, multi-groups aggregating together. So for here, as an example, we've got aluminium recycling. You can see the SDGs that it's linked to, and within that we can see a league table of who's doing well, who's not, so everyone's getting better in this particular case. But then we can also see these, for example, on a map. So if we had lots of venues as a corporate worldwide, we could see which venues or which offices or which buildings, whatever they are performing well and which need some work. I'm going to stop there and see if there are any questions. Otherwise, I'm hungry myself and I'm going to be going to lunch.
Thank you, Peter. One question from me. When you're showing like the aggregation of all the different venues, who can access that to see the benchmarking?
Yeah, good question. It depends on the permission level. Most of our clients that are using that want it to be a very open system, so it almost, imparts a bit of a competitive spirit among the venues to go, we want to be better than this, we want to be better than that. So most are leaving it very open, but there are possibilities to start restricting it, especially if they're from different. Ultimately, what we'd like to do is a league table where it's got venues owned by completely different organisations as part of it, and you can see it online or do other things. And in that case, we will need to start doing more restrictive permission-based work.
It's so interesting, isn't it? Just for me sitting here thinking, well, everyone probably wants to see that data, and the customers probably want to see it too. So that's a different angle altogether, isn't it?
Yeah, and customers. To customer, do you mean like people coming to the event, or the customer is the people who say, I want my event to be at your venue?
So more like the organiser, yeah.
Yeah, and that's where we see this huge opportunity for the event-by-event calculation tool, because if you're an organisation like Deloitte, you have to ask for this information before you say to book your conference or whatever it is at a venue. So if we can help the venues to streamline all of that and automatically produce a report, that's going to help both sides and I think drive business as well. And then show them where their footprint is high and help them make choices which then ultimately reduce that.
Yeah, it's a real value add as well as assisting them, isn't it? And just another question, when you've got the badge you shared as well, where can they share that? Is that on social media? Is that just internally, or?
Yeah, I mean, we don't link that straight to social media, and that's unlikely because most organisations want to have their social media posting application to go through there. So it can be downloaded as PDF or a JPEG, which then can go through that. But there's no reason why we couldn't integrate with those sorts of systems in the future.
And final question, obviously there's a huge push now in sustainability in the industry. We were on a panel ourselves in the summer together, looking forward to the next, say, 5 years for venues.
Yeah.
Give us one trend you see which will be a massive trend for sustainability there.
It will be the legislation coming down to smaller, ever decreasing sized organisations. At the moment there's a lot of European regulation coming through, and quite often with new regulation like this, it focuses on the very large companies that have revenue of more than 200 million or whatever it is. That will just keep coming down, and there's no way that local councils and everyone else that can see these whacking great big venues on their land are going to just give them a free pass. They're going to want to know everything of what are your scope 1, 2 and 3 emissions of people coming to these events. So that would be the big driver of behaviour change.
It's going to be a really interesting time, isn't it? Is there any questions from the audience? One final thing, Peter, how can people find you if they're watching this? Obviously it's being recorded. How can they find you after this?
Go to www.wetrack.com and then just fill in a form there. Or come and talk to me.
Brilliant.
Or we could all go to lunch together, because there's only... All right, thank you.
Brilliant, thank you very much.
Cheers, bye.